Patrick, guess what came in the mail today?
Oh, what?
This.
Stick it in!
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the M&K Productions podcast. I'm Kristen, aka Miss Flamingo, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, the wonderful, the glorious, the amazing, the magnificent, all the beautiful words in a dictionary that could describe a wonderful friend and partner, Mac. How you doing?
Doing good. I feel like we're gonna have to bring out the thesaurus, the
Thesaurus.
yeah, all that. We're gonna break that out to just get adjectives, and that's awesome.
Good
I can say
adjectives.
the same for you too. But what are you doing here today? What's going on?
Today we got an exciting exclusive episode today, and I love these kind of episodes because we get to talk to a wonderful filmmaker who's making his directorial debut, and his name is Daniel Andre. He's got a brand new movie coming out with Lionsgate called Running on Empty. So let me give you guys the rundown. The stars Keir Gilchrist, Lucy Hale, a favorite on here. We've talked about her multiple times, and comic legend, the legendary Jim Gaffigan, starring a brilliantly quirky romantic comedy about celebrating life and living it to its fullest. Mortimer, played by Keir Gilchrist, if you know from Atypical, is an odd but clever young man living in a lukewarm existence in California's San Fernando Valley until he receives some life-changing news. Determined to make the most of every day, Mort sets out on a spirited quest to find meaning in his existence and discovers the girl of his dreams along the way. So, like I said, Mac and I watched it. And before we jump into our interview, I want to know your thoughts about the film.
So, I'm not really a sucker for rom-coms when I was younger because I thought they were mushy and kind of like chick flicks to be say, but you get older, your taste expands, and when you said we're going to be watching this, I was like, okay, I saw Lucy Hale's name on it, and I was like, I'll give it a watch because I do, we do clown with the magnificent Truth or Dare. I still like to check out her stuff, and I really enjoyed this movie. I really say that it gave me vibes of a more I wouldn't say lighthearted, more of like it's a more funny version of 50-50 with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Seth Rogen, and it was a big reminder, like one of my, like I told you before, one of my favorite Adam Sandler movies, Punch Drunk Love. It is very like, it just adds that levity of like, hey, they're dying. I think that's a good element, and I thought this was a very fun romance movie, really good. Just I watched it and I just had fun with it. It was just kind of like that nice warm movie, probably find on Prime, and you'd be like, oh, this is nice. So a good little summer movie,
It is a cute little summer movie. I did enjoy it myself. And one of the reasons why I was really excited to take this on was because of Lucy Hale. I mean, I grew up watching her,
Pretty
and
Little
now
Liars.
she's been, well, I didn't really watch Pretty Little Liars, but I watched her in other stuff that I've seen her in. Like, I remember her like in that episodes of Wizards of Waverly Place.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I used to confuse her and Selena Gomez all the time.
And then she was in another Cinderella story. She was in a movie called Sorority Wars. And then like she was like guest starring in stuff that I recognized her. And then, they were just putting her name like, oh, that's Lucy Hale. And then I was like, oh, okay, yeah, she's cool. But then like when you go over some of her big, like smaller stuff, like when you talk about Truth or Dare or like, some of the horror ones, they're not great, but I like her a lot as a talent. So, and actually I've been seeing her a lot in like these rom-com films that I've been enjoying her a good majority in. Like I watched The Hating Game, which is a movie that's available on like Hulu. I recommend that if you like rom-coms, as well as Puppy Love, which is like with Grant Gustin. That came out last year on Freevee, and that was like one of like the first Freevee movies, and it was really cute. Recommended that. And then I just watched recently her movie with Nat Wolff called Which Brings Me to You, which is also became available on Hulu. I was very surprised by. I was excited to see her have more chemistry with her co-star in this film, Keir Gilchrist, who I knew from like Atypical, because he just has like a very recognizable face, and he was also in It Follows. He
That's
was like one of
right.
the friends.
Yes. Oh my goodness. You know how much I love It Follows.
I know
And
you do.
now that you point that out, I'm looking at him. He does look familiar now. I had to like double take.
And then I knew him in there's another movie I watched called I think it was called like Heartbreak or something like Heartthrob. That's what it was. I just looked it up.
Mhm.
And it was like another thriller thing. But I knew, like I said, I knew him from Atypical, and Keir worked with Jim Gaffigan on Atypical. So it's good to see them reunite again.
Good.
But from talking with Daniel, he talks about a lot of his influences in his film, like Charlie Kaufman. He brings up one of my favorite films, Punch Drunk Love,
Yep.
which is a great movie. We need to talk about that film on the podcast at some point.
Best Adam Sandler role. I will not
One of the
argue
best.
those. Yes.
Besides Uncut Gems, we have to recognize that.
I'm sorry. Yes. Best serious role, not comedy.
Yeah, not comedy. His best. Let's admit it though. His
Yeah.
best work is in his serious work. I haven't seen
Yeah.
Spaceman, so I can't say that fully. But definitely a great film. I think you should all check it out when it becomes available
On August 9th.
It's getting a theatrical release starting August 9th, and then it's going to be available on video on demand starting the end of the month of August the 27th. So you have plenty of time to check this out in theaters if you want to go support this film. I'm excited to share with you all the interview we got to have with Daniel. And I want to shout out Lionsgate once again. They have become our friends here. We will support them, and I cannot wait to see what good films they'll bring to us next. So
yes,
definitely a switch up from all the thrillers we've been getting from them. So this is a nice little treat.
Just kind of just tone it down. Less violence, more romance.
Alrighty, y'all. Don't forget to check out the film Running on Empty. Let's cut to our interview with the wonderful Daniel Andre. Congratulations on all the hard work. You must be so proud of like everything because it's a really well-made film. But before I get into talking about the film, I want to get to know you as a artist. You've done a lot of like editorial work in the editorial department. How did you get started in doing that?
So that was so I've always been into filmmaking. I've always been into, different art things. I started acting when I was 5. Did that for a long time. I started making my own films when I was like 10 years old, like little music videos, stop animation, like all of this typical stuff that filmmakers do. But then I kind of got sidetracked with music, and I ended up doing music for a lot of years. So the story behind that is actually after working in music for so many years, I always knew I was gonna make films at some point. And then when I decided to do that, I needed to kind of put something in between the music and going into film. And so I went back to school in when was that? The 2000s. And I went to Pima College and the University of Arizona in Tucson, Arizona, for film. And that was really just to get my feet wet again and making film and making shorts and stuff like that. But the offset of it was, and it was purposeful, is so when I come back to LA, I can work within the business and actually like make a living versus, having to, get a barista job or something like that. And so
no, it's very smart.
Yeah. So I worked in post-production for the first few years I was here. And that really was actually, I believe everything happens for a reason. And I think that happened for a reason because I'm, as you can tell from the film, I kind of veer a little to the left of commercial stuff. But what the time I spent at IMAX particularly helped me with was really about like storytelling on like such a bigger level, with all of the huge directors and all the big movie releases. And part of my job was, aside from working on the films, was watching them over and over, or watching a certain reel over and over. And it really drilled into me, sort of these advanced storytelling techniques and methods, and really like the whole studio movie way. And like a lot of Charlie Kaufman, I think, might say this or something. He likes to break all the rules, but before you break all the rules, you have to know the rules, and you sort of have to have some type of understanding or some type of mastery over it before you can start working, kind of coloring outside the lines. And so I think, the post work really, really helped me with all of that.
So this is your directorial debut, correct?
Yes.
So what did you want to do with telling the story? Why is this story important to you?
Yeah, I think so what I've kind of come to discover over the last year after, we've got it made and getting ready to put it out into the world is I've always had like a healthy dose a fear of death, as most people do.
Yeah, that's
Um
common.
but I remember, so I've actually gone to very few actual funerals in my life, but one of them, and the first one, was actually my grandfather, who passed away when I was 10 years old. And we went to the funeral. They had the wake, and it was the first time I've ever gone to one. And my mom we go up to the casket, and what was my grandfather is in a casket and didn't look the same. And it was just a weird experience. And it always stuck in my head. Why do we approach death this way in our society? Because I don't want to be remembered that way. And
Right.
I don't want to remember people I love that way. And then a few years ago, or a few years before writing Mort, I became aware of this thing they call extreme funerals. And in the movie, I call it adventure funerals, but it's a real thing. They actually will, put people on a motorcycle, their favorite motorcycle, or doing something they love doing in
Right.
life. And as weird as that seems, it seems really weird in our culture, especially. But when you think about it, isn't it weirder to put somebody on the other side of the room in a box, in a suit, or in a dress with makeup that makes them look nothing like they did in life?
Right.
That to me is kind of even weirder.
Yeah.
And so
No,
I
I
think that
understand.
was, yeah. So I think that was the catalyst. And then also, drawing from my influences as far as other filmmakers and other films that sort of has inspired me throughout my life.
So you just brought up filmmakers who inspired you. Who has inspired you?
Yeah. So in particular, especially for this film, I mean, it really, if you look back as far as start at Five Easy Pieces with Jack Nicholson,
Right. Yeah.
I
Oh
think
my gosh.
that's a
Yeah.
good example of, that's when there were a lot more filmmakers and a lot more studios who were willing to let filmmakers tell these weird stories. And they were sort of, whether it's like slice of life, like Jim Jarmusch type of thing, like Five Easy Pieces. I don't think you couldn't get that movie made for the last 20 years now. But those were always the stories that interest me. So Five Easy Pieces, After Hours, Martin Scorsese film from the 80s, Punch Drunk Love, Paul Thomas Anderson,
That's one of my
Eternal.
favorites. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
So good.
absolutely. I saw that for the first, and what's weird is I've always liked weird movies, but I saw that in my, I don't know, late teens or 20s at the Angelica Theater in New York City. And that was, I think, the first time it really hit me that I can make movies like the movies I like, because this is one of those
Yeah.
movies where it's not bashing you over the head with any particular theme or any particular genre or any particular anything. It's just you're following this guy's weird story, and that's
Right.
what immerses me into the story more than an obtruse amount of backstory or character setup or plot development or subplots and B plots, where it's really just the joy of watching this person on this journey.
Yeah. So my favorite part about this film is that it's slightly weird, where you take those influences that you have, but it's also very creative. And you brought on an incredible cast, right? I mean, Keir Gilchrist and Lucy Hale, who I grew up watching, and Jim Gaffigan. My parents loved Jim Gaffigan. So how did you bring together this phenomenal cast?
Yeah, it really, I think it's like it happens a lot. It sort of snowballs, and in Keir, I think the first thing I might have seen him in or remembered was It Follows, which is one of my
Oh
favorite horror
yeah.
movies of the last 20 years. And then lucky enough, he read it. He really liked the script, and he was attached to it for some time before the ball actually started rolling. And it was really to his credit. He kind of stuck with me and stuck with the film. And then Lucy came on board, and once sort of Lucy came on board, that's when sort of everything just fell into place. And I try not to have too many expectations especially in this business and in the filmmaking process, because that just creates a lot of headaches for you and a lot of upset feelings later
Yeah.
because you don't get what you wanted. And so I
Yeah.
tried to be as open to the movie gods placing whoever they felt should be in those roles. And I think that they did exactly that. And I think they couldn't have picked a better cast.
Well, the movie gods treated you very well. So, so what was your biggest challenge as a first-time director?
Whew, biggest challenge. I think for me, it was really just about, before we even shot, it was about figuring out, and even once I finished the script, it was really figuring out how to separate me from the project. And what I mean by that is in a way of a lot of filmmakers, a lot of artists, we're very self-indulgent. We're very like me, my story. This is my film. And through my experience and just through life, like, especially in this city, like not a lot of people, probably nobody wants to help you make your movie because it's hard. Making movies is hard, and it's hard because problems come up all the time. So when you have a script and you're like, here's my script, do you want to help me make it? Do you want to help me make it? You're really just presenting people with a bunch of problems that aren't theirs, that you're trying to give them. And rather than do that, I had to realize or understand I had to make the script, the film, the project, not about me. It was about the story. And once I figured that out, and I had to realize, what do I have to offer others? Rather than just me and me wanting to make my movie. And so when I approached it from that way, it was about, okay, let's find an actor who I might have something for. I might have a character for them. So that's what's in it for them. And so Keir read it, and Mortimer, that's what was in it for Keir. So it wasn't about me. It was about Keir and what was in it for Keir. And so then when Keir came on, then now it's about the story, it's about the script, and it's about Keir, and it's about me. And then that kind of just snowballs. And so I think that's probably the biggest, most important thing I learned.
So what is next for you as an artist and a filmmaker? Do you want to do something with music since you have done, music in the past? Like, what is next for you?
Yeah, right now I'm fully focused on making films, not just my own, producing other people's films. I'm working with some other filmmakers that I know who I really respect, and trying to help them bring their visions to life. As far as myself, we're getting ready to start on another film called The Last Will, which is kind of, I'm going to have several lanes of different styles of movies because I like all genres. And this one in particular is very much in line with like the Running on Empty film, as far as it's kind of like dark comedic themes. And then also a really kind of passion project of mine that I've been working on for a little bit is called Cured. And Cured is based on the Lowell Tolhurst memoir, Cured, The Tale of Two Imaginary Boys.
Interesting.
Lowell Tolhurst is one of the founding members of the band The Cure. And his memoir is about, how him and Robert Smith met when they were 5 years old. And it really just follows his story through the experience of the band and beyond that. And I read the book and I just fell in love with it. And, I was lucky enough to have some meetings with him, pitch him the ideas. So we have the script. And it's a huge passion of mine. They've always been one of my favorite bands. So that one's going to be a little bit down the line, but lots of stuff coming up.
I'm definitely curious about the Cure project because I love reading like autobiographies or just stories in general and being adapted into film, because I'm always like, I always read the book first and then I like to see how the project turns out. So I'm very curious, and I'm definitely going to check that out when that comes out.
Oh, just on a last note, I forgot to mention, we also have in development, it's a series based on Tilda's Till Death Do Us Part dating service.
Oh my gosh.
It's called Till Death Do Us Part. And so that's in development right now. And that's super exciting. And it's more away from the main character Mortimer, and it's just based on the dating service. And in the series, it's actually, she has the technology that allows you to find out your death date. And so it really circles around the dating service and the mystery of how she's able to predict this.
Then finally, for my last question for you is, what do you hope audiences take away from Running on Empty?
Yeah, I hope that they take away, I don't know, I hope they feel better about their life. I hope they feel better about life in general. I hope they understand or realize that we have a finite amount of time, and that, I think the meaning of life is life itself, and so while we're all busy and Mort's running around doing his job and this and that and whatever, we kind of forget, like, oh, this is life, this is the meaning, this is what we're supposed to be enjoying. And so I, and also I want them to take away the fact that, like, films don't need to be heavy-handed in the sense, like, not every film has to have a million characters and a million different backstories and this, that, and whatever. And that sometimes it's okay to just sit back and, like, enjoy the ride and follow the story and follow the characters.
Well, I love that response. Thank you so much for your time. It was a great pleasure and honor to speak with you today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.